Something big is brewing in Buffalo. After major reports revealed multiple star players are being shopped, we get another update from NHL insider Jeff Merrick revealing that Bowen Byram is on the block, linking him to a Western Conference team that works perfectly for the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to break down these reports, everything you need to know, and more later on this set. So before we get into that, if you're a part of the 88.5% watching this and you haven't hit that sub button yet, and you want to stay up to date on not only your Buffalo Sabres, but the rest of the NHL, there's no better place. So go ahead and hit that free subscribe button. It helps us out a ton, and in return, we'll give you updates from all around the league. But Darius, we got up straight into this today, where we did see multiple reports come out just over a week ago. We've seen Frank Cervelli saying that there are teams preparing to make offer sheets for players on the Buffalo Sabres. We get even more on a part of the Sabres roster is unhappy with Owen Power, Alex Tuch, and even more players could enter the market. Just before we get into Bowen Byram, the team is attached to in trade rumors. What is your overall thoughts on just what is happening in Buffalo right now?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sabres fans, but this team, again, is just an absolute mess. And there are some bright spots, right? When you take a look at the roster, and we're going to get to it later in the video as well, there are some bright spots. I think, in theory, on paper, the goaltending should be fine. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is one of the best goaltenders I've ever seen play live, especially at the junior level. And obviously, Devin Levi I just watched recently when he was in the Calder Cup playoffs as well against Laval live, and he was the only reason that they won that game, the Rochester Americans. So he's been absolutely fantastic at the AHL level. So in theory, the goaltending's fine. In theory, the defense should be fine as well. We're obviously going to touch on one player who could be moved out because there is such a logjam there. But multiple players are unhappy with the direction of the team. And I think more notably, the direction of the offense, because there's not much there. And you don't know what's happening with Alex Tuch either. He's on an expiring contract as well, at least in terms of next season, after next season. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they end up doing. But I feel like there is a logjam at certain positions, and they can use some of these pieces to then go out and better the team in the positions of need.
And I mean, the biggest thing is looking at the team. Like you said, offensively, this team is trying to change things up. Josh Norris was brought in at the trade deadline to fill in the void at center. Tage Thompson still here. You have older guys in Jason Sucker, Alex Tuch. But with these guys, with the Sabres, trying to get back into the playoffs, ending this drought that fans have been begging for. This is a team that's going to have changes. Now, like we said, there's going to be some offer sheets. There's going to be players that are most likely shopped, but we do get a report coming from Jeff Merrick today. And he said having to look at some Quinn Hughes insurance, Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes, and also getting a top four defender that'll give you a number of options for the remainder of the season. Now we know Bowen Byram has been linked to the Vancouver Canucks for quite some time, even Josh Norris himself, which we will touch on a bit. But what is your thoughts on Bowen Byram maybe going out west before we get into what a package could be? Do you think this is a good fit, and could you see Buffalo moving on from him as he is an RFA and they are kind of worried about offer sheets?
Well, the tale as old as time, right? Moving a player to the opposite conference. So that makes some sense with the Vancouver Canucks, and I think they could use a player like this as well. He's also been linked to the New York Rangers and a couple other teams in the East, so that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. And the New York Rangers, for example, are a team that could absolutely use this play, like an absolute perfect fit for that team. But again, we'll discuss that in another video. But I do think that they probably move off this player, and it's not because this player is bad or they don't have any use for him. It's because of the depth chart right now. And the Buffalo Sabres, if they have any riches at one position, it is probably the left side of their defense. So, this is a guy in Bowen Byram that's probably going to be playing third pairing minutes. And do you want a guy like that who's due for a significant raise from what he's, been making? Do you want him playing on your third pairing when you can go out, trade him, and get something in return that you actually do need and could use, which is maybe a center or just offense in general, because it's very thin. The lineup is looking very thin. And now with rumors, and we're going to get to it too, of JJ Peterka possibly being moved or being shopped, that makes it even more thin. So I feel like that's a player that you probably have to move off of. Obviously, you got Owen Power, you got Samuelsson, who you just signed to a contract as well. Those guys can hold it down on the left side. If you go out and get another sturdy guy that can go there on the third pairing on the left side, that's great. You got to think about the right side as well, because it's not that great, of course, but obviously, and just to correct myself too, I mean Darlene and obviously Owen Power, but the defense is okay. You can go out and get a couple other pieces, but move off of Bowen Byram. You can get a lot for him that could help the team. And I feel like Bowen Byram is a guy that a lot of teams will have a lot of interest in this offseason, because he's the type of player that fits perfectly into a lot of teams' plans, like the New York Rangers that I mentioned, that they could use a left shot like that. That is very dynamic. And he's won the Stanley Cup before, too. He's obviously dealt with some injury troubles, but he's won the Stanley Cup as well. So, Mark, I don't know. I feel like they have to move off this guy at this point just to make the rest of the team better. You know, you have the goaltending in place. Will it perform? That's still a question mark. In theory, on paper, that and the defense should do well if you find a couple other pieces to fill in there. But the offense is where they need help.
And that's the biggest thing. And when looking at the side of the Vancouver Canucks, there's one player that is constantly shopped or reportedly shopped. He was linked to Buffalo at deadline as well. And that is Elias Pettersson. Now, putting Pettersson into this lineup, he would fill the void. He'd go into first line or the second line center. Elias Pettersson is someone that did have quite a down year. Coming off 102 points just 2 years ago, 89 points down to 45. There was a lot of turmoil in Vancouver. We've seen the JT Miller situation. I'm sure the entire NHL looked at that as well. But looking at PD coming in as a possible center, I think this would work for both sides. Yes, we'll touch on the fact that Vancouver doesn't need defensemen, but if Peterka is a part of this, if you're moving on from two RFAs that you're either worried will be outpriced or worried that's going to walk in an offer sheet, is this a situation, Darius, where you look at someone that's poised to have a bounce back in Pettersson? We're going to get into some deeper stats on him soon, but could you see a bounce back from Pettersson? And would you move on from Peterka and Byram for maybe Pettersson plus?
I think this is an interesting time because we know that Pettersson's a great player, but maybe he needs a change of scenery. Everything that happened last season, the fact that he had a down year, will he refine it? I'm sure he's going to be better this season, that's for sure. But will he be the 102 point player that we saw before? We're not sure at this point. And I think a change of scenery could help him. And like you mentioned, the Vancouver Canucks, could they use Byram? Maybe they could use him, but do they really need him? Maybe not. But this is an interesting idea where maybe you send Pettersson to the Buffalo Sabres, a team that could absolutely use him. It would change their team and obviously change the scenery for him. Maybe he does go off on a team like this with that elevated role as a probably first line center on the team. But then the Canucks can flip Byram to another team that could use him, and then they can get some more assets that they need in return. Or maybe they do keep Byram and trade one of their defensemen because they have a couple as well, some really sturdy defensemen as well. Obviously, you don't want to touch a guy like Victor Mancini or anything like that, but there's a couple of guys that you could move off of, or again, just flip Bowen Byram. So I think it's an interesting idea because, Buffalo could use a player like Pettersson. Of course, I feel like most teams would probably take Elias Pettersson, but, just because the Vancouver Canucks don't have use for Bowen Byram doesn't mean that you can't do this and then flip him for something that you could use or maybe draft picks or something like that. So could get very interesting here, I think, with the Buffalo Sabres because they need help in the offensive end and they have something that they can give up. So they just have to find the right suitor. But I do think by the time, the draft rolls around, this is going to happen. I don't think Bowen Byram is going to be a Buffalo Sabre next year, and I think they're going to get something that they need in return for him.
And the biggest thing is, listen, looking at Pettersson, down year, we can all agree on this. He does have some great advanced stats. Being in the Selke runner-up every year felt like leading up to this year where he just had a stinker of a year. The big thing with Pettersson is he will have to be moved before July 1st when his no movement clause kicks in. It is a big contract, $11.6 million, but the big thing is the cap is raising. We've seen Pettersson score over 100 points. Yes, I'm a bit of a homer when it comes to the Canucks, but Pettersson can definitely turn things around. I think it could make sense for both teams. Would I move Pettersson? I would like not to, but the big thing is if both teams are looking for change of scenery, if there's players that are reportedly not happy, if they're worried about Peterka leaving, there is a situation where this works out for both teams. But Buffalo's fans, Canucks fans, if you're watching this, don't hate me because I just talked about the Canucks too. Go ahead and leave a comment on everything we spoke on these rumors that we've seen circulating from Frank Schiavelli, on Jeff Merrick, linking the Canucks to Bowen Byram. Go ahead and leave a comment on all of this. Way down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.